What's that like? What's going on out there, people? Hey, thanks for tuning in. This is episode 2 of the What's That Like podcast. I'm your host, John Knowles. Really excited today to bring you a new episode. I've got a good friend of mine, someone I've known almost my entire life, Mr. Jason Kramer. Jason is a Boston marathoner, and I thought, of anyone that I know who does something pretty amazing that almost no one else I know does, it's him. He's been running the Boston Marathon now. This will be his 13th year here in 2017. And I'm going to get into the discussion with him really about how he got started in it, what he does to train, what running the actual race is like, and everything that really goes into the preparation that it takes to run 26.2 miles. Really good story he's got. We talk a lot about us growing up in Staunton, Illinois. And you'll hear a lot about the music that maybe we listened to back then. It's kind of some fun stories there. I want to thank you all, those of you that have subscribed to the podcast on iTunes or the Google Play Store. I want to thank all of you that have gone to the Facebook page. That's facebook.com/whatsthatlike-podcast. And given that a like as well, you'll always get the updates for anything that I'm doing in terms of a new guest or, what's coming. Certainly if you have ideas for me, things that you'd like to hear or somebody that you think would be a good guest on the podcast, let me know. Maybe it's not even a person. Maybe it's a cool event. And we can kind of talk to the organizers of that event. And if it's something maybe historical in the past, you think about some of the things that have happened in the central Illinois area, and you'd like to hear a little bit about those things, drop me a line. You can shoot me an email at whatsthatlikepodcast@gmail.com. Or like I said, you can always reach out to me on the Facebook page. So that's it. The What's That Like podcast, again, is absolutely free. You can download it off the iTunes and Google Play stores, and you can stream it on SoundCloud as well. It'll always remain that way. This is a hobby of mine. I'm not doing this to make a bunch of money. I don't think there's any money to be made. It's really just something that I think a lot of people might enjoy, hearing some stories about the local history, the local people, and the local interesting things that take place right here in good old central Illinois. With that being said, let me stop talking, and I'm going to turn this thing over to the conversation I had just a few days ago with Mr. Jason Kramer. And I talked to him about the Boston Marathon, and again, I asked him, what's that like? How's it going?
It's going great. Things are crazy. Got twins, and they're 3. They turned 3 in January. 2 girls, and they're quite active. I came to this game a little late. I see all my friends from high school having, their kids are graduating from high school and then going to college, and mine are 3. So,
yeah. Yours are 3. Mine's a sophomore in college. So, so
they keep us on our toes, but they're sure a gift. I'll tell you that.
Absolutely. So, Jason, you and I go back 40 years, 35 at least, since maybe 7th, 8th grade of junior high. Tell me what you remember about growing up in the late 80s. What was our world really all about?
Well, as you know, I know you're a big Van Halen fan. I remember. I remember when 5150 came out. We just played that over and over and over. We couldn't get enough of it. Couldn't get enough of that. We liked our hair bands and that and whatnot, but that album kind of changed everything.
So you and I were in high school. We're jamming to Van Halen tunes. But really where you and I kind of became the duo was on the track. Tell us about maybe that 1987 season, that 1988 season, when you and I were kind of tearing up tracks all over Macoupin County.
Well, I will say that 1987, that was in March, so it was about 30 years ago, this past month. That really changed a lot of things for me. I know that's when I kind of came out of my shell, I think, in high school. And I remember I wasn't having a good time on the baseball team, and I was like, I got to do something. And you were on the track team, and you guys, all the track guys, were just kind of like having a good time. And I remember walking to Coach Stromsky's office, and I said, you know what, I just want to be on the team. I'll run the 2 mile. And at the time, I'm like thinking, God, I hope I don't have to run a 2 mile.
Yeah, that was punishment. If you did something wrong, you ran the 2 mile.
But I was in that kind of that. I had to do something. I just wanted to be a part of something, and baseball was just kind of the thing for me that I thought it was going to be. And Coach Stromsky was like, "Sure, come on out." And I remember doing the time trials, and he was like, "I don't think you're going to run the 2 mile. I think you're going to run the 100 and the 200." So, we were on the 400 relay in the 4 by 200, 4 by 100 relays, and it just. Yeah, it just took off. Mm-hmm. And I know you in the triple jump had great success in triple jump, and I don't remember having no other sport was that much fun.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, I thank you for saying anything, because anybody that knows me from maybe the last 15 to 20 years would never think that I was fast enough to do any of that stuff.
Truth be told, I think deep down you were probably faster than I was.
Oh, I know I was faster than you, actually. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. Well, anyway, so we're sprinters back then. We're running the 4x1, the 4x2. We go into our senior year. We're doing that. My brother is on the team with us. Those are the Knowles Express years. I don't know if you remember this, but I remember once we were at the county track meet, and the points are real tight. Our Coach Stromsky had a family situation at home. And I remember our fill-in coach at the time takes me up to the booth, because we had tied for like second or third place. And he goes, well, John, you call the coin toss. And I came down into the bus, and you go, Knowles, where's the trophy? And I go, I lost the coin toss. And he goes, what do you mean? I go, well, I called heads. And you go, no, you always call tails. So to this day, 30 years on, I still, whenever I have to call a coin toss, I call tails because of you. So thank you for that.
Excellent.
So that's back in that day. We're doing the sprints back then, and then at some point, we both go our separate ways off to college. You went to
Blackburn College.
Blackburn. What'd you get a major in?
I majored in biology. Mm-hmm. I went as an accounting major, and for some reason, mostly because of grandparents, I decided to change it and switch it up. Went to biology, and it was great. Glad I did. Obviously, worked out pretty well. But Blackburn was fun. I didn't go too far away. Some days I always look back and I wish I'd have gone farther away, but Blackburn, just a fantastic school, fantastic experience, and, just the right distance from home, but not too far away.
Yeah.
But great program too, as far as academics. I think we got a lot of one-on-one with the professors. So that was nice, and worked out well.
Good plug for Blackburn there. So Blackburn, and that's led you to what career now?
My focus mostly in Blackburn was on conservation biology. I wanted to be either a game warden or a conservation biologist like my grandfather, and got out, couldn't really find work, position in that field. Had a friend that was like, hey, we need people to work in a lab. I'm like, I'll do anything. I wanted something to do with my degree that, I'd spent 4 years getting. So I got hired at WashU in St. Louis and ended up working on the Human Genome Project. I worked on that for 5 years, and then met my soon-to-be wife, or at the time, my girl I was interested in. So that kind of led me out to the Boston area. So I came out here to work for a pharmaceutical company. Was out here, I worked for them for about 3 years, and then I ended up working for Harvard Medical School, still doing genetics, genomics. So it was worked out well. So now I still in the same field 20 years later, and I work for a company that builds the instruments that does DNA sequencing and genomics research. And I'm a trainer, a field application scientist. So basically when somebody buys one of our instruments, I go and train you how to use it and how to troubleshoot it, what you can run on it, and what you can't do with it. So it's really cool. I get to see a lot of the cool stuff that people are doing. So it's taken me some cool places. I've gotten to live in Boston. I've lived in San Diego. I'm back in Boston. It's been a great experience. Again, I met my wife in the same field, and she's a smart one.
But before we kind of skip all the way to the end, taking you from our track years in high school to how do you become this guy that goes from running 100 or 200 yards at a time to running 26 miles?
There was a big period in there where all I did was play a lot of slow pitch softball. I didn't run at all. I didn't run hundreds. I didn't run 200s. I ran from home to first.
60 feet.
Yeah. So when I got out here, and I had a couple friends, and they were like, hey, why don't you do a 5K. And I'm like, well, how far is that? All right. I did it, and I'm like, okay, this is okay. So I did a couple of those, and I didn't really, I didn't train for them. It's just kind of like, show up, here's my $25, and I'm going to run this race. So I guess one of the friends that was kind of running with us was like, hey, you should think about, training and thinking about doing some longer stuff. And I'm like, well, I don't know. It's really not it's not my gig. I don't really have time for that. I'm playing softball, right? So did a couple more races, and then finally got kind of talked into it. We're at happy hour on a Friday night, and somebody's like, let's just run the marathon. And I said, let's do it. This is after 3 or 4 beers on a Friday night. And I said, well, wait a minute, how far is it? So, I'm not even kidding. I had no idea what I was getting into. And I had lived in Boston. I moved here in 2000. I had never gone to watch the marathon. It's called Patriots Day. It's a holiday here in Massachusetts. Never went to watch it. I was like, why am I going to take my day off and go watch a race? Like, I had no clue. So I signed up. Finally, if you're to run Boston, you either have to run for a charity or you have to qualify. And I obviously hadn't run another marathon to qualify. So I researched a couple charities, and I got involved with a small charity. Just, I submitted my application, got picked. I'm like, all right, now what do I do? Oh, I have to train. I have to buy gear for this. So it was really a big change. I didn't, there was a lot of stuff that goes into it, that I hadn't really considered. But they were a great small charity. It was a different charity than I run for today, but was able to get, good coaching, good plan, just kind of what to do, how to prepare yourself. But, you get the training plan. It's like, okay, run 3 miles today. Okay, run 6 miles today. All right, run 10 miles. Well, I've never run 10 miles in my life. Probably all the miles in high school track didn't add up to 10.
No.
So, and learning to do that, but there was a lot of good help. The thing about running is just all the people that I've met through there that'll help you. It's a great sport where people are very happy to give you advice and give you help.
Mm-hmm.
So I got on that team. I trained that first year. That was the 2005 Boston Marathon. I did it, finished in about 4 hours, a little over 4 hours, and was like, I'm doing that again. All right. And then I researched, how to qualify. I knew you had to qualify, but I didn't really know what that meant. And it's all age graded. So like, I'm 47. So between 40 and 49, I have to run another marathon in 3 hours and 25 minutes or faster to qualify for Boston. So, and at the time I had to run a 3:15. I don't know that I can shave 45, 50 minutes off that time. I just didn't know how to do it. So the next year I ran with another charity. I still wasn't qualified, but I'm like, I'm doing it again, no matter what. So I raised the money, did it again. And I improved to about 3:45. And I'm like, all right, this may be doable.
You're in striking distance at that point. It's not it's not a 25% cut off the time. Now you're down to 10 or 15.
Yeah, it was still pretty daunting. And then the third year, that's when I joined the Alzheimer's team. It was 2007. And I really put in the effort that I thought, okay, this is what I need to do. And I missed it by 7 minutes. But I kind of then I knew that I'm like, all right, I'm close. I can do this. And then in 2008, I had run Boston 3 times at that point. I did Chicago once, and totally different courses, great experiences. The big cities, it's an amazing experience. And then in 2008, I actually really put in the effort, and I was like, I'm doing it. And I made it by 1 second. So
did you know it coming to the end?
I actually had screwed up my watch at the time, and I knew I was close, but I wasn't sure. And when I finished, I went through the baggage, got my bag, immediately got my phone out, and then because I was getting text messages of the different splits, and I had some text messages from some friends, and they were like, 3:15:01, you did it. And I'm like, yeah, I was like, I did it. So. It's one of those hurdles once you get over that you can kind of then work towards. So I kind of knew the effort that it took.
To recap this, the Boston Marathon was your first marathon.
Yes.
How How crazy is that? I mean, that's the number one.
It is. It's the granddaddy. It's the marathon. I mean, New York is gets a lot of press. Obviously, there's the marathon majors in London and Tokyo and New York and Boston, but Boston's just you just around here especially you say Boston. You doing Boston? Yeah, I'm doing Boston. It's just had I done any other one first, I don't know that I would have maybe kept doing them.
Mm-hmm.
To do this one, do it first, and it was like, oh yeah, that was worth it. All 4 hours, all the cramping hamstrings, everything was worth it. It's like being a rock star for 4 hours. You can slap as many high fives as you want with people along the route. I mean, the crowds are really what make it here. It's a special day, and there's a special energy, and that energy's the whole way on the course. And it's just a totally special day.
So take me through, Jason. I mean, kind of how you manage the race. How long from the start of the race is it before you actually get to the start?
So they've made a lot of changes to the start. So my first one in 2005, there was just one large corral with 27,000 runners in it, and I was back in I think it was like 17,000 was my number. You can hear the gun go off on the loudspeaker, and then there's this giant surge, and then everybody just kind of hangs out. So it took about, I want to say it was like 25 minutes to cross the start line then. Now it's done in waves. So your qualifying time puts you in a specific wave. So there's 4 waves, and then you're seated appropriately. So there's not the crowds, each wave isn't as crowded. So it usually only takes, if you're at the back of a wave, it's maybe 3-4 minutes before you cross the start line. So it's not as bad. It's not bad. But the thing about it is it starts off in Hopkinton, Mass., which is this rural town. It reminds me of Staunton. It's just like that, which is one of the things that I love about it too, is you start in this rural country town, you're running down a 2-lane road, and you're eventually 26.2 miles going to finish in downtown Boston. So that is just one of the cool things about it too. But you start off, and it's very congested, even with the runners that you're seated with. So it kind of holds you back, and that's a really good thing, because in a marathon, you don't want to sprint out of there. You'll see people going out crazy. But you put all this time into training, and you've done these long runs, and now you've tapered, and you get to the start, and you're fresh, you're ready to roll. But you really got to hold yourself back, because you can really blow your race in the first 6-10 miles. If you go out too hard, and the other thing about the Boston course, you always hear about Heartbreak Hill and the hills in the later sections, but the beginning part is a net downhill. So if you go out hard, your quads, you're going to pay, and you're going to feel it in the end, and you're really going to have a tough stretch. And I know that because I've done that. I've lived it. So it's really one of those, you really have to use that crowded start to your advantage. Go out slow, kind of find your rhythm. During the race, you have a plan of kind of what your splits you want to run, mile to mile. I usually kind of break it up into 5-mile blocks, and I have a time that I need to, I want to finish this 5-mile block in between these 2 times. The other consideration is your nutrition. You really got to practice your nutrition, because you're not going to stop and eat anything, and certain things while you're running can have a pretty poor effect on your stomach. I've lived that too. So you practice that in your training runs and kind of know there's so much different nutrition, supplements and things you can take, gels and goo packs and different things like that. So you kind of manage that. Then it's just kind of, work your plan. You really got to focus on sticking to your plan, because you can, like I said, if you go out too hard, or you've trained all winter at a specific pace, and you go out and say, I'm going to try to run this pace today because I feel good. Recipe for disaster. Those later miles will just be painful. It's just a struggle. So if you do that smart, you can finish feeling okay. I've never finished feeling like, all right, let's go out and have a good time. I'm usually ready to be on the couch. But those are the 2, that's a big factor, and nutrition's a big factor. Obviously the weather too. We'll all start checking the weather here next week, and start obsessing about it, because you definitely don't want it too hot. My worst marathon came in 2012 here, when it was 85 degrees or so, up to 85, I think, on the course. So that really takes a toll.
Dehydration, big time.
Yeah, and you really need to adjust your goal strategy at that point, because you can, the heat just takes it out of you. It's just a bear. We're hoping for 50 to 50, 45 to 50 degrees and a little tailwind, a little cloud cover. Perfect.
Yeah. That's the best. That's the best for you then. So we'll be praying for you for that. As you're going through the marathon, what are some of the things that make Boston so much different than anything else you've ever done?
The crowds make it. I mean, they are just there. I mean, I've done it in days when it's been 70 degrees and it's 6, 7 people deep most of the way along the course. 2015, it was mid 40s and rainy and windy, and they were still packed. It's a special, that it's just one of those days when you're like, it's just awesome. Like I said, being a rock star for 4 hours, you are in the race. The thing about the marathon is that you get to run the same course that the elites are running. Meb won in 2014. All the elites are running the exact same course. That's pretty cool. You don't get to do that in a lot of other sporting events. It's pretty special. And then it's just Boston. It's just that day. There's something about I did Boston.
Jason, turn the conversation here a little bit. I remember the day, April 12th, 2013. And I remember being at work that afternoon and some CNN alerts popping on and saying there's an explosion near the finish line of the Boston Marathon. And I, probably like every other American, jumped right online and went, boy, who do I know is running? And you were at the top of my list. I had 2 or 3 friends running that day. You were the only one I had the tracking information on. Tell me about that day and your experience.
So for me, I had been finished, I think, close to an hour. And our charity team usually meets at the Westin Hotel, which is pretty much right
around the corner, right by the Boston Library. Right, I've been there.
So you can't quite see the finish line, but you can you're right there. So I had finished, and our charity team, we get a meetup room where we can take a shower. We can leave a bag. We take a shower. So I was actually in the shower, and I was alone. I traveled from San Diego that year, so my wife didn't come with me. So I was in the shower. I got out, and I look at my phone, and I'm just getting bombarded with text messages. It's just, one or the other. Are you okay? Are you? And I'm like, yeah. I'm a little sore, but I feel fine. And then I noticed down there, there's always, at that time, there's always a lot of police activity. There's always a lot of sirens and things. But I kind of was like, wow, that seems like a lot. I'm like, this is weird. So I finished in the shower. I went back down, and the news, there it was on the news. And, there's just a stunned silence kind of in the room. So we immediately were kind of like, well, how many of our runners from the charity are, finishing around this time? Is everybody accounted for? Where are they? So that was a real, concern for us. Was everybody in? Were their families safe? And we did have a couple close calls, but everybody, we found out everybody was safe. But then they put the hotel in lockdown, so we couldn't move. We couldn't go anywhere. So my friend Dan and his family, he was a runner on our team from Minnesota. So we basically went down to the lounge and just I've never seen a lounge with probably 200 people that was just, there was no sound. Nobody was saying anything. We're just watching the TV, and it was just kind of the endless loops from what had happened. Still couldn't quite grasp it. What's going on here? What did this really happen, and what happened, and was it something? Was it what it turned out to be, a terrorist attack, or was it some kind of mechanical failure? Nobody, we didn't. There wasn't a lot of information right there, so we were in there for, I don't know, a good 3.5, maybe 4 hours before they kind of released everybody from the hotel. Because I usually park in the garage there, and I was going to go back to my hotel, which was over in Cambridge. So, we finally got out of there, and then more of the reports kind of trickled in on the radio, and I went to meet some friends in my old, where I used to live in Watertown, for some drinks and some dinner, and just one of those, still piecing everything together and not quite sure what happened. So I flew out the next day, and I got home, and very emotional. I got home. It's still pretty, just to think about it, the people that were affected by that, and what all happened that day. And then following it that Friday, when they finally caught them both, they caught them in Watertown, which is where my wife and I used to live, and it was pretty intense. I was at work, and I remember following that all day, and just the pictures of the the streets with nobody on, and no cars, nothing. It's hard to fathom that that happened. It's still pretty emotional. A lot of us don't really talk about it much. We just kind of go about our business. I've always felt a little bit, I feel guilty, and people just came to watch the race. It's that great day in town, and they just came to watch the race. It's just.
I can hear it in your voice. And I certainly can see what it's doing to you to answer the question. So thank you. I think everyone will appreciate your story there, and certainly I know everyone can hear your emotion in what you're saying. So from that date to the next marathon, were you in the next marathon?
I was.
And tell me about how that different one that maybe had felt from anything previous.
That was just, the energy that day was off the charts. Like, it was like, we're taking this back. The runners are taking it back. The people of the city take it back. It made me sad that I didn't live here at the time. I came back again, but I didn't live here, and I just wanted, I was like, I wanted to train here with everybody, and we're taking it back. And there was that vibe, and everybody that was at the starting line that year, and that, finishing that race, and the crowds along the way were just, it was awesome. Like, yeah. It was goosebumps. It can be goosebumps anyway, but it was truly
Boston Strong showed.
Yeah.
Yeah. You said you started 2005. That would make this your 12th?
This will be lucky number 13.
Lucky number 13.
Coming up. Yeah.
Yeah. You've mentioned your charity a number of times, your organization. You're running for a specific organization. Tell us a little bit about that.
So I've run the last 11 years for the Alzheimer's Association. So my grandfather had Alzheimer's and passed away in 1999. And I've just been a part of them. I joined them I applied in 2006 and got accepted, but I had already accepted a number from another charity, and I wanted to honor that commitment first. So they're like, come back next year. And I did, and they've had me ever since. So they're just a great organization. We raise a lot of awareness for Alzheimer's, and also funds for research and in the caretakers, and just the organization does a lot of different, they wear a lot of different hats, and they do a lot of different things for those affected by Alzheimer's, and the caretakers for those affected by Alzheimer's. So
if people want to help you out your organization this year, how do they do that?
It's on CrowdRise, so crowdrise.com, and they can search for the Alzheimer's Association or my name. And I have a specific fundraising page there, and they can make a donation online. If they don't want to do that, they can reach out to me via email. I can send them my address. They can mail a check. Some people, like my dad, he never donates online, so he doesn't trust it. So
he'll stuff some $1 bills, wad it up inside of an envelope, and send it with your next birthday card. Is that right?
Exactly. But they can reach out to me. My email.
We'll make sure we get all the information there in the show notes, and we'll put the links in there, so that'll be good for you. What's your goal this year? What's the time you're going to be happy at?
So I'm trying to set a PR this year at the ripe age of 47. Mm-hmm. I'd like to run under 3 hours.
Okay.
Be the first time. That's kind of where my training's taken me. I've run with a really fun group down here in where I live in my town. That's pretty competitive and a lot of fun. The Marshfield Road Runners. So they keep me honest. So we've had a lot of fun in this training cycle. But this training cycle has been really intense. I've had a couple little mini goals in between. One I just met today. Started December 1st. I wanted to run 1,000 miles before the marathon. I hit that today.
Wow.
So that was pretty fun. And, getting to the starting line healthy is always a huge, huge task. So I feel good.
What steps do you take right before the race to make sure you've got all the proper? You talked about having the proper equipment. What's the things you're going to have to make sure that happens?
Mostly, nutrition. The next week will be easy. This next coming week's going to be with some intensity in the runs, not the same mileage as we've been training at. And then the week after will just be some easy runs, and just like I said, trying not to get sick, trying not to eat something that makes you sick. The new folks in our charity team, they always ask me to talk to them about some experiences and what to do and what not to do. You don't do anything you haven't done. You've had 4 months to practice this. You've had numerous long runs on the weekends, training runs. Don't do anything new. Don't think, wow, that's a cool pair of shoes. I'm going to throw those on. You don't do that. I'm going to have a burrito. I've never had a burrito before my long run, but I'm going to have one today. You don't do that.
So every time I see a picture of you online, you're wearing these socks pulled all the way up to the knees. And you're laughing because, I think they're funny looking. Is it for looks or for function?
So they are functional. They are compression socks. Some will say it's voodoo, but they're proven to help make the muscle a little bit, less susceptible to cramping or injury, keep the blood flow, better blood flow. So I wear them sometimes. I don't. I'm 50-50 on the race yet. I've worn them in my long runs, but I'm still not. I kind of go back and forth, and it's also going to be weather dependent. So we'll see. But yeah, they're functional. But I do break out my green pair for St. Patrick's Day races, and I've got a new pair for some Christmas races. So yeah, it's also stylish.
Stylish is the word I would use as well. So the Boston Marathon this year is on what date?
April 17th,
April
2 weeks
7th,
from tomorrow.
2 weeks from tomorrow. We're taping this on April 2nd. How would our listeners track you in the race this year?
So the easiest way, you can go to baa.org, and on race day when you go there to that website, it'll pop up with kind of a new screen than it will today, where you can enter the runner's bib number, their name, and kind of follow them along. There's also instructions there. You can send a text, and I don't know the number offhand. I apologize. I should. But you send a text with the runner's bib number, which mine is 7100.
7100.
I like it. I like it. And then you'll get updates throughout the race as we pass the 10K, the half marathon, the 30K, and then 40K, and then finish. So you'll get time updates, so you can kind of know how things are going. But tracking online, I know a few folks do that, and it's kind of real time on the course. You can see the map of the course, and kind of as you hit those specific distances, it'll update. So it's pretty cool.
Awesome. Yeah, it is awesome. Like I said, I've tracked you a number of years in the past, and as I wonder, it's like here you and I, two small town guys, Staunton, Illinois, running 100, 200 meters at a time. And now, you could take that 26.2 sticker and wear it proudly on your car. I'd be lucky to get a 0.2 sticker. So my sincere congratulations to you for all the accomplishments you've had in the world of running, sir. You truly are an inspiration to a lot of folks like me who love watching people run, but have no desire to do it myself. And you make us all back from Staunton proud. Staunton proud, Boston strong.
I appreciate that. I mean, I do this. I do it for the charity. I do it. I can't imagine having not done this. Like, I think back and I'm like, wow, if I hadn't done this, the people I wouldn't have come across, it would be my loss. And it's fun. It makes the winter go by training. And it's just fun. Races are, like I said, for me, it's all about the perks. Some races there's pizza, other races there's a cold beer.
What's the perks at the end of Boston?
Cramping quads, but the medal is sure pretty cool. And then just having done it, it's like I said, it's a real special day here, and having done it, having been a part of it, it's sure special.
Yeah. Anything else just about the world of marathon running that you think the folks like me would never think about?
Well, good question. I think most of it's out there. There's not too many secrets. I feel like there's people fall into kind of two categories with the marathon. There's people that do one, they're like, I want to do a marathon, I'm going to do it. They check it off, they check the box, and I'm done. And then there's folks that are like, I'm doing that again. And it just, for whatever reason, the race itself is awesome, but the process getting there is a lot of fun to do.
You talk about 5150 being one of the defining albums of our time. There's another album that's probably just as important to you and I, and even some more folks. If I were to put you on the spot, do you know what that would be?
Oh, License to Ill?
Can you rap a little of Paul Revere for me?
Oh, here's a little story I'd like to tell about three bad brothers you know so well.
It started way back in history with MCA Ad Rock and me.
Mike D.
That's right. Still to this day, it doesn't matter. 31 years later, that comes on the radio, I lose it.
It just is amazing stuff.
But to this day, the band I'm in, we play Fight for Your Right to Party, and it never, ever fails. You play that song, and it lights the room on fire. Just a great record, great times. Really defined the kind of the mid-'80s there, didn't it?
Totally special. seeing that stuff coming around again, like you said, 31 years for that. Joshua Tree came out in 87. All these just stuff that we're just like, it's just looking back. It's like, really? We're 30 years?
Yeah.
What happened? Where did that go?
It does. It has gone by so fast. We've lived lifetimes in between, but I always call music the wormhole of time. You enter in one side, you hear something, and it just sucks you right back together like it never happened. Jason,
Absolutely.
I want to thank you. It's been a great conversation to have you on here today. You certainly make Central Illinois proud of you for going out there and carrying the flag. As we record this, I can see you're still wearing your St. Louis Cardinals hat. It's not the blue cap with the B on it.
It's fun to be here. I do miss home. I don't get back enough. Obviously, if you ask my parents that, they'll tell you that. But we're working on it. We're trying to get back there. But it's where I'm from, one of those places where we're from, and nothing will ever change that.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything else that you'd want to say?
No, thanks for having me. This is awesome. I think this is pretty cool, and I look forward to hearing it. But I look forward to more with you. You're doing it. It's a great job, and I really appreciate you thinking of me and reaching out and having me on.
Dude, it's been a lot of fun talking to you. I really appreciate you coming on the pod. It's certainly something that when I first started it, I thought you'd be a great guest because you're funny, engaging, and you got great stories. And certainly you're running a historic race that I think a lot of the folks here in the Central Illinois area would appreciate to hear about. Good luck to you. Certainly, I will be thinking about you in this year's marathon and can't wait to hear from you again. Jason, thanks a whole heck of a lot.
John, thank you. Much appreciated. Enjoyed it.
Well, there you have it. Wasn't Jason good? Certainly a great guest to have here on the What's That Like podcast. Told us really a lot of the details that I think at least people like myself might wonder what really goes into running a race of that distance, and just certainly all the time and effort that he puts in. You heard him say he's run 1,000 miles training for these 26 miles since December 1st of this year. Just seems crazy to me, but God bless the guy. Certainly a hell of an effort for what he's trying to do here. You heard him say you can track him. I think it was BAA.org, and his bib number will be 7100, so you can do that on the day of the race. You want to help him out in his Alzheimer's Research Foundation. That's the Run, Try, Ride to End Alzheimer's. We'll have the links on the Facebook page and certainly in the show notes as well. We'll get those posted out there to you. Help him out any way you can. It certainly goes to a good cause, and it couldn't really be going to help a better guy as he tries to do these things. So I hope you had as good a time listening to it as I had talking to Jason. I think it's certainly something that we'll check in with him again post-marathon and see how his race went. We'll bring that news back to you as well. With that being said, we'll see you next time on the What's That Like podcast. What's That Like is available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Search for What's That Like. Subscribe today and never miss an episode. Streaming is available at SoundCloud.com and on the SoundCloud app. Follow What's That Like at Facebook.com/What's That Like podcast and on Twitter at What's That Like Pod. All opinions of the guests of the What's That Like podcast are their own, not necessarily the views of the host or the podcast producers. We hope you enjoy this podcast serving Central Illinois and beyond. Peace out!
So I don't know if you remember the buzzwords for the baton exchange in the high school relays. I know you were third and handed off to me at the anchor. And I know in the exchange zone, when it was time to reach back for the baton, you're not supposed to look back. There were just some signals.
Yeah.
And we had some colorful phrases
right
that you like to say and would always
so for those folks that have run track in a relay, you don't just turn around and hand it to each other face to face. It's not quick. So when you get there, if I remember this right, Jay, I would hit a certain exchange. You would either mark it by tape or chalk, at which point you would take off. Mm-hmm. And in my head, as soon as you took off, I would count 1, 2, 3. Pull my pud. Right? Pull my pud, right?
That's it.
Now, if you ask me if I remember that, I'll ask you if you remember who told us to say it.
It was probably Coach Stromsky.
Bingo. There you go. So, Coach, if you're out there somewhere, you are certainly remembered in that colorful language that we used way back in the day.
I'll never forget you, Coach. What do we do? How do we do that? I don't know. Come up with use this. Pull my butt.
and 30 years later, here we are. I've never heard that phrase used ever in another way, and I've never used it with any other person in the world besides you, Jason Kramer.